This video presentation has been classified by the ABC as M. It contains material that is not recommended for persons under 15 years.
As well as watching this vodcast, you can watch Good Game on ABC2 every Tuesday night at 8:30 and ABC TV late on Friday nights after JTV.
Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Barjo.
Penultimate episode this week, Badge, and 'tis the season to be jolly, especially if you're a gamer with so much good stuff coming out.
True that, and we have three of the biggest getting chooked on the show this week.
Super Mario Galaxy sees the famous plumber battling Bowser in outer space. It's the 3D platformer that's supposed to be the true successor to Mario 64.
Earthbound cities Damascus, Jerusalem, and Acre are the setting for Assassin's Creed. It's Metal Gear Solid meets Thief meets Grand Theft Auto. Killing people in a white dress has never looked so cool.
And Crysis is the game shooter fans are hoping will take PC graphics to the next level.
And we look at the arcade. It's where gaming gained mass popularity 20 years ago, but with 3/4 of Australian homes having a gaming device of some kind, is their future in doubt?
All that plus more quarter circle A, but first, can you guess the retro game for this week? It's nearly 25 years old, that one. Good luck. But first, let me read you the news.
Good game.
Puzzle Quest has scooped the pool at this year's Games Developers Association of Australia Awards, winning every category it was entered in.
That was a heroic effort.
The game won Best Game for 2007, as well as Best Gameplay, Console, Handheld, and PC Title. Puzzle Quest was developed by Infinite Interactive, who are based in Melbourne.
You are victorious.
Viva Pinata Party Animals, developed by Brisbane-based company Chrome, won the awards for Best Audio and Graphics.
Ooh la la, you are number one!
Sony have announced the cost of its PlayStation 3 development hardware will be almost halved, to around $12,000. The lower price comes as part of Sony Computer Entertainment Incorporated's plan to boost development for the PS3. Over 100 people in Texas wanted on criminal charges have been arrested after being told they had won a free Xbox. When they turned up to claim their prize, the police apprehended them instead. El Paso police devised the ruse because more traditional methods, such as arresting people at home, had not worked. Over $30,000 worth of traffic fines were collected. Drug traffickers, burglars, and violent offenders were among the arrested.
Good game.
The much-anticipated Assassin's Creed stealths its way into Australia this month, and now that we've killed everyone in the 360 version, we can tell you about it.
You're the assassin Altair, and after a fumbled mission, you're demoted and stripped of your weapons. In order to prove yourself, you need to assassinate 9 targets.
Altair is stubborn, ignorant, and shows no remorse for his kills at the start of the game. But after some double crosses and shenanigans, you're left wondering whether you're killing people for the right reasons or for the right guy.
They've done a great job with the story, John, using smart techniques like showing your victim in a ruthless and mean moment when you first see them, justifying their death by your blade moments later.
Cutscenes blur everything around you except what you're focusing on. The movement is very restricted, and it can all get a bit Days of Our Lives, which is humorous at first.
There was no way back. Nothing I could do.
But it gets old fast. All the cutscenes are too long, and it drove me crazy being stuck in between these two invisible walls. The game is set in the present/future, and all your medieval adventures are actually genetic memory explorations.
Where's everyone?
Gone to see the master.
Do you think it worked, Jung?
I think it's a risky game design decision, you know, and it'll be hit or miss whether people like it or not, because in the present day you're kind of punished by having such limited controls, and you're restricted to only a few rooms. But the whole sci-fi thing works better in the missions, I think, where if you damage civilians, you get noticed more. As you take damage, you become more out of sync with your memory, and if this continues, you die and you need to resync.
It's kind of Groundhog Day, but I didn't mind that. I did want to see Altair kick some present-day face, though. Something else I didn't mind was a stealth game that wasn't at night and didn't have a crazy noise every time you're spotted and ridiculous timers.
The spotted noise is still there, but it's not the heart attack that it was in Metal Gear Solid games. Missions are set in a bunch of medieval towns that are enormous, and they look beautiful, especially in HD mode.
Each mission or memory block requires you to scope out a town and perform some submissions. These range from pickpocketing to eavesdropping or interrogation. They're very rinse and repeat, and some of the timed ones have a difficulty setting that feels like you've been hit in the face with a semi-trailer driven by blind monkeys.
Yeah, Bedge, they were more trouble than they were worth, and there just wasn't enough incentive to do the harder ones, so we skipped a few of them. We did like how the boss fights were scripted and different every single time, and it's cool how you just feel like you've stumbled upon an event that's already happening.
In the submissions, they do tend to wander into a dark alley a standard 10 seconds after you've arrived, where you can easily beat the information out of them.
It's not my fault. I'm only following orders.
Hiding spots are a little obvious as well.
It's still good gameplay, but they could have taken it a lot further. There is some depth in how you get past the guards. You can A, climb over them, B, help civilians so they take you in, or C, kill everyone inside.
So basically, this game is climbing buildings, assassinating a target, running from guards and hiding in a hay bale, and horsey rides.
There are some nice graphical touches, especially in HD. The dust that you kick up with your feet gets blown away by the wind, cloud shadows move along the ground, and there's very little slowdown and clipping. It is repetitive, Badge, but I think the combat more than made up for it.
I agree, Jung. You can counter, dodge, and combo, and it's really intense waiting for that first guy to make his move. Plus, bodies just stay there for ages.
The fighting difficulty curve is great too. Those French can really run fast, Badge, and the boss battles require move mastery. Counters look awesome, and it's great how everyone moves and interacts fluidly.
Violent death scene Dutch tilt seem to be a trend this year, Jung. I guess it hides clipping and it just looks cool, so I don't really mind.
Voice acting is great, but repetitive, and the sci-fi element didn't gel completely, and it left us wondering whether the game would have been better off without it. It does take risks, and I think you'll either love or hate Assassin's Creed. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10.
Jung, after the hype surrounding this game, I expected a little bit more depth. If they added this to the sequel they allude to at the end of the game, they could have something really impressive. I still enjoyed it though, I'm giving it 8.5.
Coming up, we look at the decline of the arcade in Australia.
There was a time when you could walk down any main street and see an arcade machine of some sort, surrounded by eager gamers ready to test their skills for bragging rights.
Game arcades in the early 80s, they were insalubrious places. They were dingy, they were dark, they were smoky. They perhaps attracted the kinds of kids that your mum really didn't want you to spend time with, and that's what made them great. That's what made them exciting for young people, and they were really places that were a teenage domain. They were places that adults didn't understand, and that made them very attractive. Of course, that also attracted some bad press.
Arcades first started making a blip in the 70s with games like Gunfight, Night Driver, Galaxian and Pong. But it wasn't until 1978 when Space Invaders arrived that momentum really started to build and led to what many call the golden age of arcade games.
You really have to consider how Space Invaders meshed into popular culture at the time. We had TV shows like Battlestar Galactica and movies like Star Wars. In a way, Space Invaders really built upon those themes in a way that no other game had ever achieved at the time.
Around the world, arcades started to pop up in shopping centres and business was booming. Games like Frogger, Pac-Man, Dragon's Lair and Star Wars were a huge success.
I had the unique experience of seeing the demise of pinball machines in favour of video gaming. Playing games like Space Invaders, Galaxian, then on to Pac-Man, and then it just exploded from there, and I thought they were great. You know, I had a couple of dollars pocket money, I'd convert that to 20-cent pieces, and I would see how long my pocket money would last by trying to get good at the games. I don't think I was ever really that good at any of them, but they were just great fun. It was good, innocent fun.
But in the 90s, everything changed.
We needed to sort of refocus with the advent of the home computer games such as the Sony PlayStation, which had a huge effect on our industry. And we went from an organisation with something like 50 stores in Australia down to about 15 stores, which we've currently got.
Australian arcades were hit harder than other parts of the world. Aussies were no longer interested in forking out coins for a gaming experience they could get in their own home.
From 1996 around to about 2000, we saw a gradual decline in customer numbers coming through to our stores.
Was it like this everywhere else in the world, or was it just us?
No, we didn't find Australia was hit for some particular reason. Our Asia areas continue to grow at a huge rate of knots.
There are some countries where arcade centres still are very popular, and obviously the most prominent is Japan, which is still a very dedicated, fervent game-playing population. Japanese arcades have been terrific at still being able to innovate and attract new audiences into the arcades because they have innovative experiences. The problem with a lot of Australian arcades, and the reason why they died, is they started to not offer value for money. You could be playing the same games at home for a lot cheaper. And they also tended to only have the same types of games, the same fighting, the same shooting, the same racing games that appeared at every single centre no matter where you went to.
The games industry changes fast, and nowadays arcades look and feel very different. So why has this happened?
The industry really tried to clean up its image and make family-friendly amusement centres, but certainly something was lost in that transition.
Now it's definitely a family experience, you know, so we're encouraging the families to come, bring their kids, and the whole environment has changed.
Australian amusement centre operators have tried to focus on value for money these days to try and keep people coming to amusement centres, and what they're mainly using is prize redemption mechanisms.
We're trying to create a value proposition where families can come to our stores and go home, not only having a good time in the store, but go home with some good prizes.
And although these early video games don't make an appearance in today's modern arcade, don't think they're forgotten about. There are many vintage gamers out there homesick for yesteryear who have turned their passion for Pac-Man into a profitable business.
Oh, it's coming for him! Nice one.
I sell arcade game componentry for people who are wanting to do it themselves at home, make their own arcade cabinets, make a simple control panel that they can interface with their PC to play classic arcade games at home.
I build arcade machines that have many features in them that brings to life a fascination of my childhood playing these games. Started experimenting with MAME, the ROM emulator, and having the games on the computer, and found that it wasn't quite the same on the computer as having a joystick and some buttons and a coffee table to lean over and put your beer on.
There is still that need there for 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings like me who are wanting to re-experience the old classic arcade games because they just offer a unique look and feel that modern games don't.
Arcades were born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, and died in the 90s. And it seems they've been born once again. Will this new love child survive? Only time will tell, but for many gamers, the days of waiting in line to play Street Fighter will forever be just a distant memory.
Logan!
Game over.
What about you, Jung? Do you ever yearn for some arcade action?
Oh yeah, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, that was my game of choice.
It was a Simpsons game for me, 20 cents a go, and you'd save up and go to the lock-in at the end of the month because it was the only way you were guaranteed a good session. They had a supervisor who would kick kids off.
Yeah, you wouldn't see that nowadays, a manager kicking a kid off the game. Let us know about your arcade experiences. Do you go to them? What should they do to remain viable? What's the future for arcades? Let us know your thoughts on our forum.
Coming up, we go into crisis mode, but first, Quarter Circle A!
I think I do it for the adrenaline, you know, for the acclaim, the pursuit of being the best there is.
Doug Douglas has focused his time and energy on professional video game queuing, an activity that involves sleeping in front of video game retailers in order to be the first to purchase new releases.
Where did it all begin? Oh man, I guess it started when I picked up my first copy of Predator Concrete Jungle. The guy at the shop said I was the first person to buy it ever, and I guess I just got hooked on the rush, you know, the thought that I was the first person.
So I'm not like other people.
I live in a world where second isn't first.
So what are some of your favourite personal conquests?
Oh, I was the first in the country to get the Da Vinci Code game, Pong, The Way of the Achromatic Bane, Bomberman Act Zero, Guitar Hero, rock the 80s. I mean, who else can say that? No one. Except my little brother, who I have to share with.
And what about some of the more highly anticipated games? Halo 3 was very popular, for example.
What? Whoa.
Halo 3.
When did that come out?
I believe it was some time ago now.
Yeah, well, can't you take it back off the shelves?
This morning, Douglas is preparing for his most intense queue to date. He plans to be the first man in Australia to own Duke Nukem forever. It is his intention to camp out until its release. We interrupt his preparations to talk to him briefly.
See, the hardest part is the mental battle. Having to, fight the voices in your head, telling you to turn back, get a real job, maybe some friends, stop following this crazy dream, telling you can't do it. That's definitely the hardest part. That and having to wee in a bottle.
Douglas set off on his journey for Duke Nukem Forever, but unfortunately, 3 weeks into the queue, he had to pull out due to hypothermia and a severe allergic reaction to a type of brick used on the store's wall. After being released from hospital, his horizons had widened infinitely after discovering such avenues as online stores and the pre-ordering system that most retailers employ. So what's next on the horizon for Doug Douglas?
Dunno. Might go get some lunch.
The road ahead of Doug Douglas is shrouded in mystery, but no doubt, regardless of which direction he takes, he will always be in line for number one.
If you've ever played Far Cry, you'll remember it as a revolutionary game in which you parachuted onto a tropical island as a lone commando. Not quite a sequel, but very much in the same vein, is a game we've been looking forward to for a long time. It's Far Cry meets Predator meets Lost in this sci-fi shooter, Crysis.
Your codename is Nomad, and you're one of the first Special Forces members to have a nanosuit. Other than looking really cool, it heals damage and also manipulates your muscles in various ways, from strength to armor to speed to cloak mode.
The cloak is by far your handiest tool, and as a result it kind of rewards you for taking a slow-paced approach. Conflict isn't always necessary, and sometimes you can stealth through a base to get what you need using multiple entry points. For example, one base might have a front entrance, a beach, an underwater tunnel, and a hole in the fence. But once you blow up whatever you need to blow up, you need to get out of there.
If you've ever wondered what next-gen gaming on a PC looks like, this is it. But it's not just a pretty face. You can't overlook the story and the gameplay either. The very early missions are very much like Predator, where you enjoy the unfairness of it all. It gets much more hectic later on as you find out the Koreans have nanosuits as well. And as the US moves into the island, you find yourself in a full-scale war where everybody is partially aware that something else is there.
Shit, bitch!
Then it'll throw you into trickier situations, like having soldiers advance on you with a chopper overhead. If you shoot on the soldiers, you'll reveal yourself and the chopper can pummel you.
Or forcing you to jump down an elevator shaft where the only thing that'll let you survive is strength mode, but having a cloaked enemy at the bottom ready to melee you in the face. And it's situations like these that really make you think a bit, and that's good to see. It's another reason why this isn't just an average shooter.
It's mostly uninterrupted play, and once you complete an objective, you get the coordinates for the next one, and it's up to you how you get there. I didn't expect it, but one of the coolest parts of this game is just sitting on a hill, surveying a camp, and planning your attack. It really pays to have a plan on how to get in and how to get out. It's also pretty cool how you can use your binoculars to tag enemies, and once they're tagged, they stay on your radar. It's a silly feature since you can never tag everyone, but it is very cool, and it's very futuristic commando.
You know, a lot of the time I'd be creeping along and I'd see the AI and I think, that's really dumb, they're not even looking at me, but then I realised I was just cloaked.
Yeah, it's intense the way they crawl all the way up to you and still look around.
Yeah, but really the AI is quite good. The way that they try and surround you once they spot you and call for help is a great part of the engine.
Ah, yes, the engine. Now, Crysis is kind of Crytek's example on how to best use their new proprietary engine, CryEngine 2. The engine might be more successful than the game in the end, and as we can see from Crysis, you can see every little imperfection in people's faces, and the draw distances are huge.
Seeing mountains crumble from miles away is really something else.
It runs on XP and Vista, but if you want the benefits of DirectX 10, you'll have to run it on Vista. Oddly though, the very high graphics settings on XP were disabled. You can enable them, and if you want to know how to do this, visit our forums for more info. It's not DirectX 10, but in some cases it looks almost identical, and it'll run better from being on XP.
With everything turned up in this game, it looks absolutely stunning, from dust to explosions to water effects. It's done better than we've ever seen before. But the problem is you need a creme de la creme computer to be able to run it. Even computers considered to be high-end will have to lower their settings just to be able to see it, and it doesn't scale down as good as we'd like.
Yeah, even decent video cards will experience a lot of rocks and trees and people popping up out of nowhere. And it kind of takes you out of the game when you're shooting at a guy and he reacts to it, but you're wondering why you're not hitting him, and then you move 1 inch forward and suddenly a rock pops up between you and him. You were shooting at a rock.
If you don't have a DirectX 9C compatible sound card, you're going to experience sound delays on some of the sound effects, such as your suit telling you what mode you're in 5 seconds after you've selected it, or Koreans giving death cries 5 seconds after they die. It only really runs into a problem though when your allies are telling you where you need to go, but they're talking over each other so you can't hear them. If you have a recent sound card, you should be okay.
There were also a few standard graphical glitches we came across, and it's the sort of stuff you'd expect to be fixed in a release patch, but at the time of recording there was only one patch for multiplayer.
And the multiplayer was good, but you can imagine a bunch of guys running around in stealth suits as a formula for a very long game. If you're playing on a server that has DirectX 10 enabled, then you get day and night cycles, and that's cool. There's also a nifty level editor, but you're going to need Windows XP 64 or Vista to be able to use it.
Crysis is a decent shooter in its own right, with good AI and unique elements, and the open-world commando style of play lets you set your own pace of combat. It's also got some pretty cool extras, like being able to mod your weapon, and weightless environments where the recoil of your gun would propel you backwards. We should warn you, though, your experience will largely be determined by how good your PC is. I'm giving it 8.5.
Well, if you've got the hardware power, you're going to be blown away. And there's no question that there's enough in the gameplay and in the story to stand on its own, even without the crazy technology. But I don't think it's worth upgrading for. Only a small percentage of gamers out there are going to be able to see the full effect. Everyone else is just going to have an above average shooter. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Badge, have you ever come across an old friend you haven't seen for a long time and you just pick up right where you left off? It's like you never spent any time apart at all?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's like with me in Super Mario Galaxy.
Ah.
Nintendo are calling this one the true successor to the Mario 64, released back in 1998. And if you ever spend any time with that one, this will feel instantly familiar, with all the Coopers, coins, Bomb Buddies, and Bowsers you could possibly want.
Mario is on his way to the Star Festival, when, surprise, surprise, Princess Peach is captured by the evil Bowser. It's up to you to rescue her and restore health and happiness to the land.
And so begins your 3D platforming adventure, although rather than a castle and jumping through pictures, you're in an observatory and flying to different galaxies to solve puzzles and beat bosses to gain stars. The more stars you gain, the more galaxies you have access to.
Now, Junk, the game is simple to understand, but it's brilliant, isn't it? If you get a bit stuck or frustrated, you can warp back to the observatory and find another place to get a star from. It means you never really hit a block where you can't move forward.
And the puzzles are so much fun. I mean, Mario's got all his normal tricks like the high jump and the long jump, but if you add into the mix gravity, it really gets your brain working.
I really like the learning curve too, and the way you return to areas you've already cleared to complete mini-games that you've unlocked as you progress. I found that the puzzles and the boss fights were also really challenging. You know, they're pretty hard, even early on in the game.
Yeah, I know, Bedge, but, I like that. I think it's a balance between difficulty for a challenge and difficulty for extending playtime. And here they've got it really spot on. Although I think younger players and new players might get a bit frustrated as you do fall off into oblivion a lot. And some of the bosses hit pretty hard.
It does have the option of a second player helping out though, right?
Yeah, but in reality, that's not much more than the second player collecting up all the space bits, of which there are a lot to collect.
How did you find the Wii controls?
I liked them, you use the nunchuck to move around and you use the Wiimote to aim and spin and jump. Although I did have an issue with the camera in some levels where it doesn't let you change the angle.
Ah, that old chestnut.
Yeah, damn frustrating at times.
Junk, you think the cutesy meter has gone over into the red or into the pink?
Well, I think, it is pretty cutesy, but the animations are great. It's big and bright. It's the best Bowser I've seen. We have to mention the sound as well. It's classic Mario tunes all throughout.
Well, I didn't play Mario 64, so the whole Mario in 3D was a new thing to me. I really liked it though. I found it challenging and it was funny, especially when he transformed. I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. It's classic gameplay at its best.
Apart from the lame story, of course.
Well, you got to expect that with Mario.
Yeah, this is everything a franchise game should be, but too often isn't. It brings the familiar stuff, it also brings a lot that's new. The time that they spent developing on this really shows in the quality, and it's a huge game. I'm looking forward to the holidays, man, where I can just really explore every nook and cranny of it. It's the true successor to Mario 64, already a classic in my mind. I'm giving this 10 out of this world chickens.
So gamers, did you guess the game for this week?
It was Lode Runner, released in 1983 by Broderbund. You had to avoid enemy guards by digging holes for them to fall into, or by digging your own holes to escape in. It was one of the first games to have a level editor.
Well, that's all we have time for, gamers. We'll be back in 2 weeks on Wednesday night for digital viewers.
With an hour-long game extravaganza.
Reviews of the zillions of games coming out this Christmas, including Mass Effect and High School Musical.
Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and Unreal Tournament 3.
And Lux looks at girls in gaming. Do women prefer certain types of games, and what's the industry doing to attract them?
We chart the evolution of the first-person shooter, and Quarter Circle A have let the silly season go to their heads. Plus, it's yours and our votes for the Good Game Game Awards for Games of 2007.
So hit the forums and cast your vote in all of the categories, including the Good Game Game of the Year game. Until a fortnight from now, Bajo out.
Junglist out.